Farmers are putting VR headsets on cows to make them think that they're grazing on green grass open fields when they're actually caged up. China has come out with this new artificial intelligence video creator that's really given OpenAI's Sora a run for the money. This is a global AI talent tracker, and it shows that Chinese talent that moves to the US to get educated actually mostly stays here. Github, owned by Microsoft and partnered with OpenAI,
now has the power of GPT-4
built directly into its deployment. Cryptocurrency Ethereum's co-founder, Vitalik Buterin, has weighed in with his AGI Doom prediction, 10%. US's Homeland Security Department now has a new tool that can actually scan your car to see what's inside of it. And we're talking every inch of it, and almost perfectly. New paper with authors that seem like pretty much everybody that works at DeepMind have written about the ethics of advanced AI assistants. Nissan has invented self-organizing office chairs. And the AI YouTube community is doing a live stream. But first, let's check Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, and we are still at 72. So a couple years ago, some Russian cattle farmers who didn't have green grass to graze on because there's a lot of snow out there and they were just eating hay inside of a barn, figured out that if they put these VR headsets on the cows, they would think that they were just grazing on grass and they would just eat that hay right up. Now, of course, with Apple and Meta's new headsets, arguably Ready Player One style world is coming where humans also could be victims of simulations like this. And by victims, I mean completely immersed in like a photorealistic, video realistic style world that our brains pretty much get completely lost in. And that world seems like it's closer than ever. We know from those demos that Sora is looking pretty freaking amazing. Runway ML, Pika Labs, they already do little moments that look okay, but you can see that progress from where we were just a year ago, and you can extrapolate out that in the next couple of years, we're going to get to photorealism. And these clips are coming from a new video model called Vidu. It is China's answer to OpenAI's Sora. So this is a translated version of where the model originally was released. And you can see this company from the website Shengzhou-AI.com's translated obviously into English. Had some powerful image generating tools already. They were already working on some pretty good looking 3D generations. So the current model that's coming out of Beijing can do 16-second clips. Very cool. I mean, I'm seeing the water contained by the wall here. I see the water acting like the way it would in an ocean with the white caps. I see the boat floating pretty well. You got this light source that's above it coming down, and it does feel like the brightness is hitting the boat correctly, although it does seem like they have some extra lighting here, but that could just be off center. I don't know. That's pretty impressive. The waves that are happening on the top do seem to be waving the way the light is refracted onto the floor. I am seeing some of that on the dog. Like if you look at this light right here under the mouth as we go forward, it does seem to kind of bounce around in a way that I would think it actually would underwater. The fur the dog's smile and the way that the eyes are open so wide, that doesn't feel right for a dog that would be underwater, even if it was happy and just swimming around. And there's a little bit of a wonky nose thing that makes me feel like the nose isn't like real bone and fur. The woman looks okay, but this is looking to me like something just a frame-by-frame diffusion model might do. The cat turning, I could actually see being something kind of similar. Now this eye one, I kind of feel like is the worst. I don't know. The second part of the eye opening makes sense to me, but the first part feels kind of like it doesn't open right to me. All right, the car is amazing. This is one of the best clips, I think. I mean, they're mentioning the dust, which looks great, but just the depth of the road looks great. I see the people inside of the car. They look like they're really kind of bouncing around in there. I mean, at least it looks like a kind of high-end video game, if not photoreal. Yeah, that theater lighting looks pretty good to me. Maybe a little bit kind of weird shapes down here that feel sort of unreal. Actually, on closer inspection, the corner doesn't feel like it stays in the right place for what would be a real corner. But it's small. It's not something I would have noticed the first time through. Whoa, look at that dragon. He looks crazy cool. Macro Polo put out this great visual of just where the people are migrating across the world in terms of AI. So obviously China is much bigger than the United States. Many more people are in artificial intelligence. And you can see that about half of them stay in China from undergraduate school to graduate school and then work in a Chinese company. But the other half do leave China. Most of them come to the United States, are the ones that leave, and then they kind of get split between Europe, Australia, and other places. But surprising to me, I figured like a lot of them came here, got educated, and then came back to China. Not that many really do. Only this thin sliver does. Most get postgraduate work here in the United States. It's fascinating to see just how connected the world is becoming in these sense. Like, you know, India is a huge place and they have tons of people too. So why don't they have as many people in AI? I would just love to see India putting up some numbers, you know, comparative to at least the US or other nations. European undergrads go to graduate school, stay in Europe. And then like, Russia's kind of an interesting one too. They have this just little line at the bottom where like you're in Russia, you go to school in Russia, then you work in Russia. But a lot of them kind of peel off and go to Australia and Canada, or peel off early on and go to the US. The key takeaways are the United States remains the top destination for top-tier AI talent. China's got an expanded domestic AI talent pool. India remains a significant exporter of top-tier AI researchers. Now you can see going from 2019 to 2022, the elite AI experts, though, are diminishing in terms of US proportion. China, which accounted for just some portion of other in 2019, is now 12%. That's really impressive. And UK made some expansions. Germany shows up on the second pie chart. If you're wondering where this top talent is going, it's pretty much to Google. Google, Stanford, Chinese University, MIT, Carnegie Mellon. Don't know what country Peking University is in. Berkeley, Microsoft, Meta. The common names you hear: Oxford, UCLA, Princeton, Chinese Academy of Sciences, Harvard. All right, so let's talk about artificial intelligence and GitHub. Now, if you're kind of intermediate with code, like kind of like I consider myself, like sometimes I've built some things and I'm kind of familiar with some basics, but a lot of times I'm looking at documentation. I'm not instinctively writing great code. I have a sort of limited type of thing I can build. Then you often end up on GitHub and you're like, man, this project seems cool, but I don't really know how to run it. Like, I don't know how to pull it down correctly. I don't know how to version control it correctly. I don't know how to put it in a Docker or run it on a specific operating system. But you know GitHub has all these amazing open source projects. Well, this is going to be a very powerful tool because GitHub, owned by Microsoft, Microsoft's partnered with OpenAI, has access to an amazing infrastructure with Azure, and it's completely getting integrated into this. It just dawned on me how maybe like a large language model, we can start talking to GitHub fairly soon. Well, now you've got this incredible new platform tool to actually go build what you want using all of this stuff that's out there, but it's kind of been behind the wall of knowledge. Before generating a plan, you go in here and explain what it is that you actually need the code to do. Copilot plans an implementation for you. You tweak it, and then it generates the code that you need for your specific situation. Open up a live preview. It's got a little sandbox environment, kind of like Code Interpreter for ChatGPT. You can chat with your developer, the Copilot that actually compiled all of this from the base code and also has knowledge. Yeah, just the ability to go from an idea to code with natural language is going to potentially be a game changer. All right, so one of the most interesting people on the internet, Vitalik Buterin, co-founder of Ethereum, just also super smart, logical, thoughtful, nuanced kind of person, chimed in on this chart. And just looking visually, you can see that the two quadrants on the top left and the bottom right have more bulk in them, meaning a lot of people think AGI is coming around the corner and all future value is likely to be destroyed by misaligned AGI, or AGI is not soon and all future value is unlikely to be destroyed by misaligned AGI. Right, and this chart is just people who are kind of speculating on how they feel about it from things that they've said on podcasts, so who knows how like accurate we should treat that. But Vitalik himself did chime in and say that he put his P-doom, probability of doom from AGI, at around 10%. But even say artificial intelligence becomes super intelligent and it keeps us safe, or at least alive, is it even a world that we want to live in? Well, it seems very hard to have a, quote, friendly, super intelligent, AI-dominated world where humans are anything other than pets. All right, so get ready for new artificial intelligence to inspect your car. So there's some dealerships now in Michigan that are using technology from an Israeli startup called UVI. And like, you know how an MRI can scan your brain and try to see what's inside there without actually like checking it out visually? Well, this can do the same thing, but to your car. So kind of similar to airport security where you stand like that and it like circles around you. So car dealerships could drive a car into this platform and this thing will spin around them. Bunch of different sensors, camera angles, start to put together a picture of what's inside the car. Look, bomb threat, small dents, easy to find. But they're getting more and more detailed with the technology, and they're putting together full-on reports about the whole engine, the way the suspension system is, the way the seats are kind of integrated into the car. Potentially, if little things like bolts are starting to get loose, oil buildup, and certainly people and things that they might have in their trunk or in their back seat or in their glove compartment or under their car seat. And yeah, it just made me think like, wow, that's crazy, because probably just going through checkpoints, technology like this could be implemented for, say, everybody that's coming in or out of a state soon. And that's what I mean when I talk about this technology just kind of being dangerous and not sure who should be in charge of it and who should be able to deploy it and what rules should be about it. But these guys over at Google have thought about that. So let's move into the ethics of advanced AI assistants. Now, this is a monster of a research paper. It has so many names in it. It is so long, 274 pages. Obviously, I can't read it all, and I seriously can't even scan it all. It's that big. But just going through this table of contents, you can see that these are people who really understand the technology, and they just wanted to outline so much important stuff that you could use to build laws around or to make decisions about how you're going to deploy these kind of things. You know, they talk about key aspects of aligning these things for values, human values, the potential to use and misuse artificial intelligence for the well-being, medicine, mental health. They talk about safety in general, just from engineering or things that can hurt people physically that we build in the real world. Like, how can these models and future models actually mitigate danger when we're giving them to people who can misuse them in various ways, and what kind of ways can they be misused in that could be dangerous? Talks about the potential of AI to influence us as people, influence elections, influence like us to buy stuff. The risk of anthropomorphism, meaning we like start thinking of them as human and sentient, even if they're not. They're just talking to us like they are, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but that's a different debate. They're just saying like the problem with treating systems in a way that feels human, because only humans have been able to do it before, can cause issues. Trust, privacy, how to have an appropriate relationship with an artificial intelligence, cooperation, how to make sure that everybody has access and opportunity to take advantage of this kind of technology, misinformation, and even economic impact. Oh yeah, sorry, no, it doesn't end there. That's right. There's even more just to the 3 pages of freaking table of contents. Yeah, there's also environmental impact that AI is going to have and how we evaluate these AI systems, and like 5-6 pages of conclusions. Listen, you know about Tesla's autonomous cars. You've seen probably some like autonomous testing vehicles in your city. You've seen the Roomba, which cleans and goes back home. But did you ever think, wow, what if the future of mobile technology, robotics, and Roombas come together in the form of a chair? Well, that's what Nissan did. They made self-parking office chairs. You clap at them and they just go back where they're supposed to go. Imagine, all your furniture just puts itself away, Beauty and the Beast style. Future is now. Now, was the clap the best thing to put all the chairs back? Probably not, as sometimes applause breaks out in meetings and speeches, and you don't really want them all just like, whoop, everybody's tucking themselves in. But conceptually, very cool. All right, and I wanted to tell you about some of my favorite YouTubers all getting together on a new YouTube channel called AI Community. Super cool. 6 ultra talented people in the AI community just coming together to answer a whole bunch of questions, especially some of the ones that were like if view count didn't matter, what are some of the things you would talk about? I felt like I learned a ton. They talked about some of the AI tools, and it's going to be this cool thing where we learn a whole bunch about the AI community as a whole. So really fun to see them doing some long form content, interacting with the community in real time. You should hop in there, make some comments next time they go live. I think the goal right now is to do it at least twice a month, but it could change. It's all like very brand new at this point. And we're going to drop a comment on David Shapiro's podcast with me. Thank you for having me on. Boom. All right, so now moving on to some of the research for this week. At Science Direct, you can find a really interesting paper. It's called Is Artificial Intelligence the Great Filter That Makes Advanced Technical Civilizations Rare in the Universe? And what's kind of freaky about it is this paper is arguing, Michael Garrett is the main author, and he's suggesting that maybe this is that moment, like not in the far future with ASI, but right now, right before we start becoming an interplanetary species, we also come up with the technology to invent more intelligence. Yeah, and with artificial and superintelligence maybe just around the corner, the paper argues that with an average lifespan of under 200 years, technical civilizations may face existential threats from artificial intelligence, which would align with observation, which is that extraterrestrial signals are really not detected by SETI out there. And SETI is the organization that searches for extraterrestrial intelligent life. And yeah, it's just a really thought-provoking read. I think, you definitely don't have to agree with it. You definitely don't have to agree with those probabilities. There's many other reasons why we might be able to look up and not see aliens, and not just because they all invented AI and destroyed themselves, but that could be a nothing burger and like a waste of time and some doomerism just like for getting attention or whatever. But also it could be the important thing that needs to be addressed to save humanity. And yeah, and personally, I'd rather look a little bit like a doomer and at least try to make a difference on that second case than I would be wrong and be overly optimistic like a lemming jumping off a cliff. Next paper we're going to look at is much more practical, like our normal research for the week. And the paper is called Taming Diffusion Probabilistic Models for Character Control. Okay, so this introduces a new concept of motion diffusion, and maybe that's going to be something, the way we all know stable diffusion and diffusion models, motion diffusion might be kind of right up there. I mean, of course, you never really know what's going to go from like research to like everyday AI terminology, but this interesting system was developed by these researchers called CAMDM, a conditional autoregressive motion diffusion model. And it's using the concept of diffusion to see how a character is moving in a certain direction and continue that movement in a way that the same way that it would think, okay, I have this noise and I want to create a face from a prompt, and like that looks like the edge of a face, and then the way a nose would be and eyes would be sort of here, and it's learned all those different layers from all of the input that it's digested. This is learning all of the motion input and diffusing step by step how the motion might play out. If you happen to use like an editing program or something, you can usually what they call interpolate between two locations. You can take say an image of a, I don't know, like a rocket ship or something, and put it on the left side of the screen, and you set a keyframe, maybe one more in the middle and then one more at the bottom with a little bit of rotation, and it's going to animate that for you. So you're setting little points like start, stop, maybe a few more, depending on how fine-grained you want to be. You can go in there, you can put as many as you want, but if you just put a couple, it can just like, a rocket ship can just fly across the screen fairly simply. Okay, so this project is all about taking concepts that you want done in 3D, especially in a software called Blender, which is the open source version of like 3D Studio Max or Cinema 4D or any of the what's that, Maya, I think, AutoCAD. These are all 3D tools that are used for various situations like movies and video games and graphics, right? And using tools that can understand text, can understand vision, especially flat images, and then turning them into better pipelines. Like in most cases, that would be going from, I want something that's really soft and fuzzy, into something more specific, like a long description of what it is, an understanding of the material, putting the material, like linking it to the 3D object in the places where it should be. So just the parts of, say, like a dog that should be soft, but not like their nose or eyes or mouth or anything, not the bottom of their paws, and understanding really in a situation through vision what makes sense and what doesn't. So this system in particular is called BlenderAlchemy, and it uses an iterative system to move around lighting, to change textures. From what I could tell, it didn't actually change the shape of 3D objects, but it could make the environment make sense. It's more like a pipeline tool, so the whole process of just going from an idea stage to like a basic sketch artist stage to then linking all of the things together and then getting the lighting materials right and then getting a 3D scene created. Yeah, so all those like small tweaks, the procedural things, the stuff that's not even that creative that 3D artists are doing all day long just to make something come out right. So you get some of these text prompts for like materials. They say swirling pattern of dark blue, teal with semi-transparent quality, evoking the mysterious allure of a deep sea. And it goes through this iterative process of getting more and more like a deep sea. It starts with some of these input materials and then edits and tweaks step by step until you get this much better final product. A metallic swirl, a final acid trip, a celestial nebula, digital camouflage, marble granite. It's like very cool how it uses that pipeline. The edit discovery process of turning a wood material into a, quote, marble granite. Give it this input, it's a wood material, the output, marble granite. Now, Blender GPT is a competitor to this, or like kind of a previous research project, and then this is how much better they've got. So digital camouflage as the prompt. Here's what Blender GPT did. Definitely not as good, in my opinion, as their final product. Ocean depths, that's weak. It's just like blue with little swirls. Like that looks much better. The metallic swirl, I guess. I mean, it's very dark blacks in that one, I guess, but it did capture the swirl much better. So yeah, an acid trip. Actually, acid trip Baby Blender GPT did slightly better, but Celestial Nebula, definitely theirs. So BlenderAlchemy with the, quote, hand lotion under disco lights, like at a nightclub, it does a much better job going from the input lighting to the edited lighting. Here's where you can see how it moved the different lighting around to make that happen. Hand cream on a hot comet outside at night. That's the input scene. That's the edited scene. Looks a little weird, but I guess it is. Okay, that was the input rock material, and here's how they changed it so it'd be a hot comet outside in the night. I don't know, like the future is definitely just talking to these kind of systems in a natural way, and BlenderAlchemy does seem to make some progress on that. Okay, so this paper that's coming out of MIT called CAN, it's a Kolmogorov-Arnold Network, is a big deal because there's been this one part of a neural network that people have tried different things with, and they found some that work that some don't, but it's always been like a parameter that you can tune, I guess you'd say. It's not even a tuned parameter, it's more of a graph, an arc or something that you would like lock in, and that would be part of the learning method. But these guys were like, can we actually learn that on an individual basis based on what's going in too? So it's not just the parameters, the billions of parameters that we talk about these models actually being and how they shape to kind of customize a function. It's like the actual thing that even measures in back propagation is learning itself. So the way to think about this is it's like a fancy upgrade to a traditional neural network. Now, a normal network would be called a multi-layer perceptron, right? An MLP. And it would have an activation function. So I think about it a lot in terms of how the human brain works. If you get enough electrical signal into a neuron, you go past a threshold and then it fires, right? It's like a very binary thing. Like you're either not over the threshold or you're over it and it fires. Now, in most neural networks, you have an activation function, sometimes like a sigmoid activation function, or there's some other ones that are really popular, but they're just one function and they're kind of the same, and they're like that threshold. Like any neuron in the brain seems to have just one threshold. When it's over it, boom, it happens. These are kind of like the shape or the way it activates that you don't change. Arnold networks are actually learning that parameter individually on every single neuron, let's say. And what the paper is showing that it allows for much, much smaller networks because they're learning even their own parameters in detail in ways others aren't to outperform the bigger ones. And this is why it's starting to get pretty crazy because it's like learning on learning on learning on learning. Like everything is being learned. We're learning how to tune the parameters. We're learning about how the hardware should be configured. We're now learning the actual network itself. And now we're even learning the activation functions inside of it. It's like everything is a variable at this point. It just might make the future of neural networks way more powerful at much smaller levels. If you've seen any neural network graphs, you might have seen something like this where you have the different neurons that are learning different weights. And then this is the activation function that they're using to learn. But here they're actually saying that you have learnable activation functions here on the edges and then some operations on the nodes to calculate the changes and kind of balance them all out, unify them. And then what you end up with is a much kind of deeper neural network without actually making it much deeper. You're just learning so much more about each layer. So here you can sort of see linear, learnable, nonlinear, and fixed. And now you get nonlinear and learnable. All right, so those of you on my growing pains journey, very painful year and a half I've had, not quite having the success on YouTube that I wanted, but having some. I have felt really good. The last month or so, I've been clearly getting above 1,000 views per video, which just was not happening for like a long time over here. Like it was just not getting above 300, 500, 300. And this is after a year of consistent posting. But here we go. My last video, 1,400 views. The Miss AI beauty pageant I wanted to lead with because I was like, seems very clickable. It's like a pretty girl, and AI influencers is kind of a talking point, and a beauty pageant for AI seems like kind of controversial. So I guess that did okay. Not quite as good as I was hoping, but still on the upper the upper tier of what I would call average for my channel now. 14 subscribers matters, every one of you. Thank you. Not getting too many people through notifications. So if you did get a notification, I mean, those are usually the super fans, like the people who actually like really wait for my videos and want to be notified and click on it. So if you came from one of those, let me know in a comment and I'll kind of know like you're one of my like really big fans. And if you go the extra mile to like answer your questions or cover any topics you want or whatever. The thumbnail only getting a 6% click-through rate on average, which still is not the worst. Like 6% is a fairly good click-through rate, but I was kind of rocking like 8 or 9 on the last couple of videos. So I was in that upper tier. I kind of dropped down a little bit. So that might explain why the impressions stopped around 15,000. You know, getting a 50-50, you know, getting about a 50-50-ish ratio for subscribed and unsubscribed. I always like when there's a lot more non-subscribed because that means it's showing it to new people. But hey, things are still trending in the right direction. It's going to be really cool when I get to 11,000 subscribers. That was a pretty solid month for getting 800 subscribers. Any comments about how you found the video would be super helpful. Not just notifications, but was it your For You page? Are you subscribed? Anytime you want to just throw information about how you found the video, I can start using that better to increase the views. So thank you very much. I will see you in the next video. And yeah, thank you.